देवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये श्रीमतां स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तन हृदयन्तस्थो ह्यभद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृच्छतं नाष्टप्रायेष भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवतेरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 14, titled The Story of King Vena, texts 11 through 14. Text 11. Nirupita Prajapala Sajighamsati Vai Praja Tatapi Santvayam Yemanum Nasam Shtatpatakam Sprishet Nirupita Prajapala Sajidhamsati Vai Praja तथापि सान्त्व ये मामुं नासांस्तत्पातकां स्पृशेत्. Translation and report by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. We appointed this King Vena of the state in order to give protection to the citizens. But now he has become the enemy of the citizens. Despite all these discrepancies, we should at once try to pacify him. By doing so, we may not be touched by the sinful results caused by him. Purport. The saintly sages elected King Vena to become king, but he proved to be mischievous. Therefore, the sages were very much afraid of incurring sinful reaction. The law of karma prohibits a person even to associate with a mischievous individual. By electing Vena to the throne, the saintly sages are eternally associated with him. Ultimately, King Vena became so mischievous that the saintly sages actually became afraid of becoming contaminated by his activities. Thus, before taking any action against him, the sages tried to pacify and correct him so that he might turn from his mischief. Text 12. Tadvidvabher asadvritto venosmabi krito nripa shantvito yadi no vacham न ग्रहीष्यति अधर्मकृत् लोकधिकार संदग्धं दहिष्यमा स्वतेजसा तद्विद्वद्भिरसद्वृत्तो वेनोऽस्माभिः कृतो नृपां शान्तिवितो यदि नो वाचं न ग्रहीष्यति अधर्मकृत् लोकधिकार संदग्धं दहिष्यमा स्वतेजसा. Translation and purport. The saintly sages continued thinking, of course, we are completely aware of his mischievous nature. Yet, nevertheless, we enthroned Vena. If we cannot persuade King Vena to accept our advice, he will be condemned by the public, and we will join them. Thus, by our prowess, we shall burn him to ashes. Purport. Saintly persons are not interested in political matters, yet they are always thinking of the welfare of the people in general. Consequently, they sometimes have to come down to the political field and take steps to correct the misguided government or royalty. However, in Kali Yuga, saintly persons are not as powerful as they previously were. They used to be able to burn any sinful man to ashes by virtue of their spiritual prowess. Now, saintly persons have no such power due to the influence of the age of Kali. Indeed, the Brahmanas do not even have the power to perform sacrifices in which animals are put into a fire to attain a new life. Under these circumstances, instead of actively taking part in politics, saintly persons should engage in chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna. By the grace of Lord Chaitanya, by simply chanting this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the general populace can derive all benefits without political implications. Text 13. Evam adya vasayenam munayo ghudamanyavah उपव्रज्याब्रुवन् भेनं शान्त्य सात्वयित्वा च सामभिः एवम् अद्य वसायैनं मुनयो घोरमन्यवः. Upavrajya Bruvan Venam Shantva Yitva Chasamabhihi. Translation: The great sages, having thus decided, approached King Vena. Concealing their real anger, they pacified him with sweet words and then spoke as follows. Text 14. Munaya uchu nripavarya nibodhita yatte vidya payamabo ayushri balakirtinam tavat tata vivardhanam. Munaya uchu nripavarya nibodhita yatte vidya payamabo आयुश्री बलकीर्तीनां तव vivardhanam. Translation: The great sages said, Dear King, we have come to give you good advice. Kindly hear us with great attention. By doing so, your duration of life and your opulence, strength, and reputation will increase. According to Vedic purport, according to Vedic civilization, in a monarchy, the king is advised by saintly persons and sages. By taking their advice, he can become the greatest executive power, and everyone in his kingdom will be happy, peaceful, and prosperous. The great kings were very responsible in taking their instructions given by great saintly personalities. The kings used to accept the instructions given by great sages like Parashara, Vyasadeva, Narada, Devala, and Asita. In other words, they would first accept the authority of saintly persons and then execute their monarchical power. Unfortunately, in the present age of Kali, the head of government does not follow the instructions given by the saintly persons. Therefore, neither the citizens nor the men of government are very happy. Their duration of life is shortened, and almost everyone is wretched and bereft of bodily strength and spiritual power. If citizens want to be happy and prosperous in this democratic age, they should not elect rascals and fools who have no respect for saintly persons. End of my quote. नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमदे भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Humbly seek the blessings of all assembled Vaishnavas, and thank you for the opportunity to purify myself by reading and summarizing from Srimad Bhagavatam today. Please forgive if I add my own interpretation to the summary. So, we are in this chapter called The Story of King Vena, and before this, we saw how the previous chapter, the titled The Story of Vena and Prithu, where we saw King Anga, the father of King Vena, was kind of not happy with his son's behavior, and he left the kingdom. So now the great sages, as we saw from the beginning of this chapter, were kind of thinking for the welfare of the people, the citizens, because a king, a leader is needed. So because there was no one to protect the people might become very independent and non-regulated. So because of that higher purpose, thinking that the king is needed, and then the purpose of the king is to administer and for the spiritual welfare of people. So they picked Vena, son of King Anga. And although initially there were some ministers who opposed this decision, Brahmanas and sages made the decision to promote King Vena as the king. Because at that point, the situation was that they had to make best use of a bad bargain, and they ascended Vena to the throne. And we know that we have seen also in this chapter that King Vena, he was very proud because of the opulences he had, and he considered himself greater than everyone and anyone. So he started insulting great personalities. And the message here is that a leader must not only have power but also should have character. And clearly, King Vena did not have good character, and he was a bad person to the extent that he stopped all religious rituals. And now, at this point, the sages assembled back, and then they kind of concluded that the catastrophe is approaching, and that out of compassion, they have to do something to the citizens and the kingdom. So um, they realized that people will not be happy in this kind of with this kind of a king, and so they had to come back into action. Uh, Typically, we see in this current Kali Yuga that the Brahmanical personalities, they are aloof from like the political administration. But in this case, in King Vena's case, as soon as the Brahmanas saw that the kingdom was not going on as expected, then they had to intercept and then come and help in this kind of emergency situation. So we will see that they will consult with King Vena's mother, but then we will also see that although they consulted, but they will take a decision to kill King Vena with just the power of mantras, and they will not basically respect mother's loving affection, meaning the loving affection is not as important as the king being right and then of good character. So also the other message that comes out here in verse 11 is that the king, the Brahmanas, because they were part of the original decision to elect King Vena as the king, they are now afraid of the reactions, sinful reactions from King Vena's behavior. So they are discussing at this point to basically rectify the situation. And also we see this nice behavior or action from the Brahmanas, that they don't immediately kill King Vena. So they take an opportunity to rectify King Vena. And this is a message that pacification and opportunity for rectification must precede any action. So, in other words, before any severe actions are taken, there must be a discussion, maybe an exchange of words. So here again, the Brahmanas go to King Vena and say and tell him that, give him good advice that if he follows their instructions and then rectify his current behavior situation, then his duration of life, I mean, his opulences, his strength, and all, even reputation, everything will increase. But if he doesn't pay attention to their instructions right now, they're warning him that they have to take some severe decisions. And Prabhupada, as always in this book, in many purports, takes this opportunity to glorify the chanting of the Maha Mantra. Prabhupada says that, I mean, in this age and time, there are not qualified Brahmanas, so it is hard for anyone to go and approach Brahmanas for recommendations or advice. So rather, the best way in this age of Kali is to basically chant or engage in the chanting the Maha Mantra of Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada says, by the grace of Lord Chaitanya, by simply chanting this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the general populace can derive all benefits without political implications. And we also heard from Jonas Rampal Maharaj in the last week of how chanting is so pure, and even one time chanting purely can remove any amount of sin that we can imagine accumulating. So, and because also yesterday was His Holiness Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's um, disappearance day. I just wanted to share briefly what Maharaj also explained in his Japa retreat sessions, that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our grand spiritual master and a vastly learned, powerful, and integral Acharya in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, took a vow to chant 300,000 names of Krishna every day for 10 years before he started preaching Krishna consciousness. So, in other words, he wanted to do solitary spiritual practice to get inspired to preach. But afterwards, he wrote the following song, which expresses his realization of the ineffectiveness of such practice, chastising his mind for not engaging in active preaching. So, I will share this song in the group, but it's a long song, but the meanings, the translations are very, very powerful, and we can see what the mood of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was. But also, another quote from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is that Bhagavan Krishna will not accept anything which is offered by a person who doesn't chant Harinam 100,000 times daily, and such a person is considered a patita. By sincerely endeavoring to chant Harinam without offenses and remaining fixed in chanting constantly, one's offenses will fade and pure Harinam will arise on the tongue. So this is one of the instructions of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So to summarize, I think in this section we see that the Brahmanas were considering the welfare of the kingdom, and then they were repenting their decision to promote King Vena as the king. But now they also come into the picture, thinking about how to rectify the situation. And this is a lesson also for us that, I mean, yeah, we may take a decision in life which may not be the right decision, but it is always no late to correct something. And then, especially, we are so fortunate that we are in the association of senior devotees, and we can always consult and then get very good advice. And also, the message that comes out here is that we should very seriously take to the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, because that is the only way that we can purify our previous actions, purify our current actions, and also get the mercy flowing in our life to be able to make good decisions for the future also. So with that, I'd like to conclude my summary for today.